All right. Uh, okay, so we're going to get started. And I just want to, first off, thank you all for being here. I know we have quite a few new schools this year, so we've maybe not seen each other in a virtual meeting. My name is Diana Robinson, and with me today is Venus Thompson, who's going to help host the meeting. Alina George is actually, she has been on leave, and we will get her back soon. So we're missing her today, but she will be back when we have our next meeting. So this is our first UAS Collegiate Training Initiative for 2024, and it's 1/24/2024. I don't know. I feel like maybe I should go play those numbers later, but that's interesting that it fell on this date. And I'm going to pass it off, Venus, to say a few words, and then I'll pick back up.
Hello, everybody. Good to see everyone. I'm Venus Thompson, and as Diana said, I work with her in FAA's UAS integration office, and I'm happy to see each of you. Even though your camera's off right now, I did get a chance to scroll through and see your smiling faces. I'd like to extend a big thank you to the National Center for Autonomous Technologies for recording this webinar and also for hosting us once again. We just love NCAT. If you don't already know, NCAT hosts the repository for the UAS CTI program. And on their site, you'll find other resources and event information there. If you get a chance, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Give a look when you get a moment.
Yeah, so our UAS CTI journey began April of 2020. And the reason for this, we brought it up in multiple meetings before, was we knew, there was a need for this growing profession for drone professionals, building out that workforce. So our first meeting occurred in September of 2020, with maybe 25 to 30 schools in the program. And I'm really happy to tell you that we have around 135 schools with quite a few requests still out there. And hopefully we'll have MOUs pushed through so that number continues to grow. I have invited a few schools who have recently requested to participate. And the reason for that is because I hope this is such a fabulous meeting that you're going to hurry and get that questionnaire filled out and sent in. So we have a new graphic. 200 more for 2024. We tried to reach that this year. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I really did see quite a bit of growth due to some recruitment efforts. We also have 37 minority serving institutes as part of the program. And as mentioned, we have an additional 100 plus schools that have actually put that request to participate in, but haven't completed their paperwork. And reasons are that maybe they're a new program, not quite ready to join. But then there's some that it's maybe a little bit of laziness. Yes, I said that out loud, but I know I would definitely get a graduate assistant or student to fill that out if I needed that done. So before going to the agenda, I also want to remind you early schools that joined the program that you need to get in your MOU. And those that joined in early 2021, you'll start receiving new MOUs that are ready for signature, because that hit that three-year mark. And thank you for the schools that got those to us. So we have a really good agenda today. Since the beginning of the year, we've had many new schools enter the program, and that's why I wanted you all to come and join us today. Those that have requested, but the big thing too is I wanted you to actually meet some people. You met Venus, she's part of that UAS integration office. We're in outreach and engagement. I think Jose is in the meeting today. He was feeling a little under the weather, Jose Skinner, but he also works with us. Alina George, who I mentioned, Jennifer Audette, who's our manager, is here in the meeting today, and many, many others. But first, I thought it would be a great opportunity for you to meet our support center. And so we are going to kick it off with them. Steve Farrow, he is going to tell us a little bit about the support center, and then each of the support center group are going to come on and say a few words.
Okay, thank you, Diana. My name is Steve, and I'm with the UAS Support Center here in AUS. And we're going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and let you see all of the folks that are a part of the team. If we could have the next slide, please. So just a little bit of background, the UAS Support Center, we've got three main functions. We are the de facto managers of the FAA Drone Zone website. We deal with external customers primarily, but we also deal with internal customers. Those external customers range anywhere from companies, corporations, individual Part 107 remote pilots, and recreational flyers. The QRC code right there has got will land you at FAA Getting Started, which is kind of the gateway to everything that's on our website. We are all located in the National Capital Region around Washington, D.C. And I emphasize right there working remote because that has significance. Because one thing that working remote allows us to do, it doesn't confine us to a 8 to 4, 9 to 5 work schedule. Because we work remotely and we can stagger our work schedules, we can get started very early. We're real time with people on the East Coast, but we also have an ability to stagger our work, as I said, and work later in the evening, which gives us some near real time capability with the West Coast, which we just simply wouldn't have if we were in an office environment. So what I'd like to do is take a minute, first of all, and just go around and let you meet the guys who are actually the ones who do the work in the support center of answering inquiries and dealing with customers. So if we go next slide, please. And Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind kicking it off.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan. I work in the UAS Support Center. As Steve said, I've been with the FAA for going on 7 years on May 18th. And we are a busy support center. I'll say that. There are a lot of phone calls that come in, a lot of interesting ones, I should say. But the work is definitely challenging and rewarding at the same time, or can be. Thank you.
Okay, Landon.
And please feel free to turn your camera on. And for those in the audience, I think you can even spotlight the speaker. That way they fill your whole screen.
Thanks, Diana. Hi, everybody. My name is Landon Long. Graduated from the Oklahoma State University aviation program many years ago, and then had about a decade of aviation experience, industry experience before joining the Support Center. Been here about 5 years. So hoping to see some of you guys in person at some of our outreach events.
Thanks, Landon. Paul.
I'm a graduate of Duke University and a current PhD student at University of North Dakota. I'm an airline transport pilot with about 8,000 hours. I have 2 commendations from NASA, one from the administrator. I started with model airplanes at age 6, and I've been 7 years with AUS 410.
Thank you, Paul. And I have the enviable position of following Paul. As I already told you, my name is Steve. My flying career is entirely with the United States Air Force, 20 plus years, flying F-111s, F-15s, a smattering of time in other aircraft. When I left the Air Force, I went to work supporting DoD and the intelligence community in Black World drone operations. And in about 2015, I made the transition to supporting FAA, got on board with the FAA right before Part 107 came on, and have been there ever since. So that's our team. Next slide, please. So any organization needs to have a strategic direction that's got to be concise, clearly stated, and something that everyone can understand and buy into. And I want to give a pat on the back to Joe Mora, who's on with us today, because Joe is sort of one of the architects of this strategic direction that we work with. When Joe was the manager of AUS 400, his motto was enable operations now. And concurrently at the same time, we had an executive director whose direction was find a pathway to yes. So that's what we use as our strategic direction, not just in the support center, but throughout all of AUS. Enable operations by finding a pathway to yes. Next, please. So how does that translate into a tactical approach? What do we do on a day-to-day basis? Well, instead of bottom line up front, I put what I think is top line up front. And that is that we understand that we're kind of unique in that the people we deal with are not UAS or are not aviators. Most UAS operators are something else first and then a drone pilot. Uh, Not to denigrate or say that they're not professionals, because a lot of them are quite professional. We deal with corporations, we deal with professional construction engineers, professional realtors, professional educators. So we understand who we're dealing with, but we understand that they are not aviators and don't necessarily speak the regulatory language of the FAA. And that's one of our challenges. So on a daily basis, what we try to do is give people who are coming into this new field direct access to an FAA expert on how to operate in the NAS. And I hope that's a takeaway that you got from meeting everyone who's on this team, that if you contact the UAS Support Center, you're not getting an entry-level employee or an intern who's reading something to you from a script or trying to identify the proper subject matter expert to get to you. You are talking to the experts when you contact us. We take an approach that's based on sharing information. We understand that people don't speak regulatory gobbledygook on a daily basis. So it's our job to try to take that information and translate it into something that's useful to an operator so that they can get airborne and do what they're wanting to do. We also understand that most people have never interacted with a government agency. And a lot of them find it quite astounding that at any given time they can pick up the phone or hit send on an email and it goes directly to someone who's going to take action on it. Highly unusual for any organization, particularly for a federal agency, for you to have that type of real-time access to the experts. And finally, our bottom line is kind of the same as yours, and that is to educate. We want to make sure that people are out there doing innovative things, but they're doing it within the regulatory structure that the FAA provides. Next, please. And one thing that I think our network does for us is it allows us to give what I think is a very great answer to a lot of inquiries. And that answer is, I don't know, but I know who does know. So we work directly with the other lines of business within the FAA, from general counsel, ATO, flight standards, the law enforcement folks, public safety, SMEs, communications, and public affairs. We reach out to these folks on a daily basis, and on a daily basis, they're reaching into us as well. So it's the network that allows us to have that level of expertise. Next, please. So how does that translate to what we do on a daily basis? Well, this is what I call our battle rhythm. These numbers are from 2022. We're still compiling our numbers from last calendar year. But in 2022, about 17,000 inquiries. That's emails, web form, and telephone calls. Averages about just under 70 a day. That number sounds high, and it is high. It keeps us very busy, but keep in mind some of these are simple inquiries to answer. Others are quite complex. And the complex ones sometimes can take hours or days of research in order to come up with a response to someone. So it's a pretty heavy battle rhythm, especially for 4 people covering the entire United States. Next, please. And this is kind of my get off the stage slide. And I think the bottom line here is that for us to foster innovation and integration of drones into the national airspace system, there needs to be communication occurring. And that communication has to have meaning. So for communication to have meaning, it has to be effective. And the best definition that I've ever heard for effective communication is the meaningful sharing of ideas. And that's our goal, is for you to meaningfully share with us what it is that you're trying to accomplish, for us to take that goal, figure out a way to make it happen within the regulatory structure, and then communicate that clearly back to you. And with that, we get innovation and we get integration of drones into the national airspace system. And with that, Diana, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. What a great quick presentation, and we got to meet everyone. So that really is very main doing that. All right, so some of you are aware that we have been out visiting different regions. The Droning On concept, actually the 2021 UAS Symposium, which was in 2021. Everything was still virtual, We had some roundtables, and the whole idea during that symposium was, wow, this is such a great way to just talk about.
Looks like she froze there.
What happened, happened. We dropped. Okay, can
Yeah.
do I need to re-share the screen?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you need to reshare.
Okay. Sorry about that, and hopefully it won't happen again, but it may. Okay. So anyway, we started this droning on series that were virtual. We had like public safety. We met with on stadiums and events, safety culture. And so as we went into, I guess it was early 2022, it was like, wait, why don't we get out and actually go to the people? Let's get out there. We had also presented to our region offices about the work that we're doing in the UAS integration office. And so we thought, hey, this might be a really, great opportunity to get out and get to be with people, right? So we did, and a lot of you hosted our events. I'm not going to stay on this screen for very long because you're actually going to be told a little bit about the different events. But we went out, we talked about public safety. We talked to local governments, what they're doing. We had an education focused day with schools at not just college level, but high school as well. And we started in the central region. We've had 2 events actually in the central region, but May of 2022, we were at University of Nebraska at Omaha. You may see some familiar faces here. Spencer, who's on the left here from Kansas State University, they actually hosted a day-and-a-half event just this past November. And that was also giving focus to public safety. And then the second day was on agriculture because that area, there is a lot of agriculture. And then we went to New England. I saw that Dan LeClaire was in the meeting. That was our second event, and it was University of Maine at Augusta. However, we were at a hangar in Brunswick, Maine. It was the old Naval Air Station there in Brunswick. And we just had a wonderful time. Again, we would focus on the picture here on the right. I think that was Brunswick Police and how they're using drones. On the left, the picture with Dan in the front, those are retirees. We found it interesting. We had quite a few retirees that heard about the event. They came out, they wanted to learn about drones and drone usage. And I think one of these fellows even had a boat, and he was saying, when I get around and travel, I'd like to know what I can and cannot do. And now I'm going to pass it off to Venus so that she can tell you about a few of our other events, and then we'll wrap up, and we're going to be hearing from I think Jessica Brightman and or others from that group, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
So if you look at the picture right there in the very center, that is the mother of this brainchild that we call Droning On. That's Alina George. She couldn't be here today because she's not just on leave, but she is on her honeymoon, traveling to exotic countries. And I'm just trying really hard not to be jealous of all the good food that she's going to be eating, but I can't wait for her to get back so I can live vicariously through her. This was my very first Droning On event here at Great Lakes. We were at the University of North Dakota. We had a great time there. There was a lot of snow flurries that happened on the day that we usually have our community event. So that kept some of the people away, but we had really meaningful connections all the same. And it was a great learning experience for me. Next slide, please. The fall of 2022 took us to North Carolina State University, where Justine Hollingshead and her team, including Evan and Thomas, educated and entertained the crowd demonstrating the NIST system. You can see right there on the left. This ended up being a 2-day event instead of a 3-day event, and we had the demonstrations at the end of each day. On the third day, normally when we would have our community day, they were also having the North Carolina State Fair that I got to go to, and that was an amazing time. We had a lot of fun there. Next slide, please. This was at the Eastern region. This was a blast. The Eastern region Droning On coincided with Drone Safety Day last year, and we held it at Warren Community College during the spring. Staff from FAA's regional office, we had a lot of staff come out to support, including STEM AFSED rep. They ran the drone cage, and there was also a drone soccer competition that was hosted by Dr. Will Austin and his staff at Warren College. We had fascinating indoor and outdoor demonstrations. We had a light show, and they showed us how drones could be used to capture and reconstruct crash scenes. It was amazing. They're doing big things out there at Warren. They gave us a tour of one of their facilities where they actually do 3D printing of some of the pieces for the drones that they make themselves. Next slide, please. Okay, California, okay. In July last year, we hosted an event with Fullerton College and Cal State Fullerton. Since this one was in the summer, it was a little bit different. There were no classes that were in session, so we didn't really cater towards students like we would normally do, but it kind of coincided with a drone film festival and award ceremony. This was a blast. Seeing the different ways drones can be used in film all around the world. In other countries, they don't have the same regulations we have here. So some of the things that they are allowed to do were spectacular and eye-opening. I fangirled a little bit all day long because not only was the film festival happening, but R2-D2 was there, and so was the 501st. So that was really exciting. Next slide, please. This is over to you, Diana.
So during Southwest's event, we actually had a drodeo, and this was kind of the brainchild of one of our contacts there, David, who's in the white shirt. He had a vision, and we went with it. We had there were students that came every day. We had FPV racers. You can see them on the left here. Again, we had just like in our other, and I did want to emphasize too, when we mentioned region office, we wouldn't have done all of these if it were not for our regional offices. They make the decision where and when we would have these events. We were there to guide them. We did research, trying to send messaging out to those that maybe would want to participate. We had at Southwest even a speaker come over from Los Alamos National Laboratory, which was really cool. That was a little more on cybersecurity. And then from there, we went over to the Navajo Nation instead of, different ones flying in and flying out. It's like, we're near enough. Let's just go over. And this was actually Western Pacific's event. And so we were at the Navajo Nation Department of Transportation, and wow, they really had a thirst for learning about what drones were all about. And I know the words that resonated with a lot of us from one, it was actually a retiree. He said, we are educating our young, and then they're leaving the reservation. And we really would love to have some type of, industry or reasons for them to stay. And so hopefully we will have more interaction with our tribal nations, and that is the plan.
So from there, we went to Northwest Mountain Region event, and that was held at Ames Community College outside of Denver. We had a lot of public safety personnel that attended this one. It was very interesting. We had several, well, not several, but we had a couple of fire departments and a couple of police departments, and some of their demonstrations and their presentations were very different than what we had been seeing at other droning on. You can see at the upper right-hand corner, we also had a drone soccer league come and demonstrate for the kids. We had a whole school that brought out a whole bus load of children to come out and hear about drones. What was interesting about this one, we also made connections with some storm chasers, and they attended the 2 days that we were there at Ames. While we were at Ames, we also set up a booth at the Colorado State University's Drone Center, where the first Colorado Drone Air Show happened.
And then corn.
Shadi, I think you might want to, there we go, thank you. We set up a booth at the Colorado Air Show. CSU believes that this event will become become like the Oshkosh for drones. We hope to be a part of it next year. It was very successful. We made a lot of connections and saw a lot of great things and talked to a lot of great people. Over to you, Diane.
Yeah, and to wrap this up, I know we've had that we've not made it to one region, not sure that we will be going there. If you wanted to host an event like this, what we're telling everyone is to get in touch with the regional office. They'll take the lead for any future drone-a-nons with our support. But if you have events, drone camps and such, and I know I receive messages periodically, we will definitely, try to be there to support you. And if it's not one of us, we're kind of spread out across the country. And so we could potentially get someone to your event, and if not one of us, like a drone pro. And those are some of you are drone pros, those external volunteers to the FAA who are part of this, helping us with education. So we had a really great couple of years. We were happy to meet many of you in person. We appreciate you being speakers, conducting demonstrations. And with that, I'm going to move to the next slide. And I'm going to stop sharing. Brad, I think you mentioned, are you going to be running the slides or actually presenting?
No, yes, ma'am. I'm going to run the slides for Jessica.
Okay,
So if I could share my screen, that'd be awesome.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you for being here. Let me turn off I didn't do a big introduction. We have Jessica. Her name's perfect because she's going to be a bright light, and I know this will be a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Diana. So I am Jessica Brightman. I'm the manager of the implementation branch, and I want to talk a little bit about remote ID. Joe Mora is here from our flight standards organization, and we work on this collaboratively. We've been working to implement the remote ID rule, which is Part 89 for a couple of years now, and we've made quite a bit of progress. So next slide, please. These are some of the things I'm going to talk about. Let's just get right into it. So next slide, please. So remote ID, the operational compliance date was September 16th, 2023. And we're working hard to try to educate and inform people about remote ID and compliance so we can increase compliance. I know that initially after remote ID became effective, there were issues finding broadcast modules, and there was a lot of questions on the topic. So we have, as a result of that, when the operational compliance date came around in September, the agency decided to exercise enforcement discretion until March. So I wanted to provide an update today of where we are in compliance and some of the information about how to comply, and then answer any questions you have. So right now, 107 compliance rate, according to our drone zone, is 21.3%, and recreational flyers are at 14.1%. We currently do not know how many drones will need broadcast modules that don't already have them, but we're trying to work to get that information. And obviously, there's one way to comply with remote ID that is not having a broadcast module or a standard remote ID drone, which is to fly in a FRIA. We currently have over 1,800 FRIAs approved across the country. Next slide, please. So one of the big things that we have had come online recently, I think it was earlier this month, the FAA approved FRIA sites are now searchable on our UD site, which is our Visualize It mapping site that provides GIS data for drones, including airspace and a bunch of recreational flyer sites, a bunch of other information. But you can now also look at the layers and find FRIAs and search in your area for them, as can any other drone pilot across the country. Next slide, please. So I wanted to dig in a little deeper and show you where we are on remote ID compliance. Right now, this is for 107 operators. We have over 370,000 registered drones registered under 107, and 78,000 of them have updated their registration to say that they are compliant with remote ID. And next slide. So recreational flyers, we're a little lower on compliance here, where we have about 366,000 registered flyers, and 51,000 of them have updated their registration to show that they're compliant with remote ID. Now, if we can go to the next slide, please. Last sort of stat slide I wanted to share was, this is how many broadcast modules have been listed within the FAA drone zone. So we've seen an increase in folks registering broadcast modules over the last last month or so. So that's good news. More people are getting broadcast modules and getting ready to comply that way. Next slide, please. So one of the other things that we're realizing as we come and learn more about how we can help people comply with remote ID is that, you know, we've had a lot of folks not realize that they need to register. So registering drones is an important step. It helps us track both how many drones are out there in the system. It also helps us track the remote ID information. So we want to make everyone aware that registration is important, and we're going to be doing this between now and March 16th and thereafter, and reminding folks that not only do they need to register their drone, but they need to put in the information about how they're going to comply with remote ID. And next slide, please. So if folks don't know how to register, the FAA drone zone is where everyone needs to go to register their drone. If they have questions about remote ID, there's the Declaration of Compliance website to see if your drone or broadcast module has been accepted by the FAA. All of this information goes into the drone zone, and then registrations are ready to go for remote ID. So next slide, please. So one of the things that as we go through this, and obviously we're currently in enforcement discretion related to remote ID, it is a requirement to use. However, if you have not been able to find a broadcast module yet, we are allowing people a little more time to get there. And in general, you know, our philosophy is a compliance philosophy at FAA. We first and foremost want to educate folks on how to be safe in the NAS and how to, you know, work together to learn and become better aviators, and to make sure that we are all meeting the requirements. So I think that, you know, something that that's part of why I'm here today, is to talk to all of you. And we all are working to get to other audiences to try to remind folks that remote ID is an important piece in our plan and our work on integrating drones into the national airspace system. It is a stepping stone for enabling more complex drone operations by creating a more safe and secure national airspace system. So the more we can encourage compliance, the better off we all will be, and it will assist us as we move forward. So I believe that's the last slide I have, or the next slide's about questions. Joe, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add before we open up the floor for questions and more discussion.
Jess, you did a really great job explaining the whole thing. I just wanted to reemphasize that we really wanted to reach out to this group because give you the opportunity to ask us some questions too, and then we're hoping that with your voices you can help kind of multiply the intention of you know, making this March 16th date stick, because for a few different reasons. We don't think, we've talked to some of the manufacturers and everything else too of you know, upgrading their drones or creating broadcast modules, and regardless of going back to the beginning of the rule, which has been ongoing for a while, we want to see compliance. We want to actually see the manufacturers producing those, and you know, we know the longer that there's any postponement, that the prices aren't driven down, that type of thing. So we do want to help answer questions here. And I got to just throw out that I got so excited to come on the CTI here because I love this group back in 2020. And as Steve said too, I've been involved with this for some time, and I had the honor of signing probably the first 80 or 90 of these agreements that have probably expired and been refreshed by this point in time. But no, really happy to be here. And thanks for the shout out, Steve and Diana and Venus, and you're all doing a great job here. So thanks.
Well, let me thank both of you. Jessica, really appreciate great presentation. I think you're getting ready to say one more something.
I was just going to say, I think we have a hand raised for a question. So
we do, but I was going to point that out. Peter, please jump in there, turn your mic on.
Guys.
And Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to register a I kind of blinked there for a second. I'm trying to register a FRIA site up where we already have a drone field, and there have been a couple of hiccups, and it takes about 2 months for each communication, it seems like, to happen. I just resubmitted my FRIA application with a KLM with the exact coordinates of where our drone field is going to be. And I'm just nervous because our drone class doesn't happen until April. I'm just concerned that we will hopefully get our FRIA accepted by then. And I guess I'm just kind of wondering, is there somebody, a direct line that I could speak to just to make sure, hey, is this the right information? Do you need anything else? Can we make sure this is going to happen? Because I've been having trouble finding remote ID broadcasters. We're just in the process of ordering them, but where we're trying to order them, it's Adorama. It's a place as a company in New York City. We're getting the Czech made or Chechen made remote ID units, but they seem to be on back order. So I'm concerned. My drone fleet is a couple of years old, and I only have one drone that has remote ID built into it. So I'm going to have to get the transponders for my older drones. But as we normally only fly at this drone field that hopefully will get a FRIA, maybe I don't need to be so concerned about it. So I just have a couple of questions. It'd be nice to have a direct line to whoever is, looking at those applications for FRIA sites.
Yeah, and Jess, if it's okay, I'll jump in on.
Yeah, I was gonna defer to you since that's in your organizations.
So yeah, I failed to mention that we do have our rule lead on here, Ben Walsh, and he can probably give a little bit more detailed answer, but the shorter answer is if you haven't heard back, you can always ping through the support center here too, and that they'll get it to us and they'll flag that if you've been having some problems going back and forth. At this point in time, I thought we had caught up pretty well to the FRIA issues, and there's an alternative to the FRIA that would probably be offered too. So for those of you that don't know, if there were problems with airport proximity or things like that, Ben has worked out a system where there can be a letter of authorization also. So there's probably going to be a couple different. So you wouldn't be a charted facility potentially if there was still issues in issuing that FRIA, but we could consider giving you an authorization to operate without those. But Ben, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Thanks, Joe. I mean, I totally understand the question. Everybody, would like to have a response and a decision in an expedient manner. In the order received. So while Joe is correct that we have worked through a significant backlog, there are new applications coming in every day. So
I'm sure you're jammed up right now, but I guess the really pertinent question is, I just sent you guys a KLM. Will that be sufficient information for you to adjudicate whether or not my FRIA application should proceed?
So we don't have to go into a lot of details, but the application form allows you to input the coordinates of the FRIA. You can either do a point and a radius, or you can put the points of like a polygon. So we generally don't require you to submit a separate document. The application has a field in it for you to provide those coordinates. Now, if that wasn't working out for you previously, definitely contact the support center and they can help you if you were experiencing any issues. But generally, we don't require you to submit a separate document.
Okay, so the support center is on that link that you guys just put in. Okay, cool. I don't want to hijack the meeting here. It's a very specific question.
That's a good question though. And yeah, UAS help at FAA.gov. And I got to give a shout out for all the inquiries that they get. They weren't bragging about it, but for a federal agency or, a regulator, I think their response time is usually less than 24 hours. So
cool.
It's pretty impressive that they're so responsive. And you heard the staff that there's there with Landon, Jonathan, and Paul, and everybody else. It's really.
Can you put that email in the chat?
Yep.
Yeah, so our email address is uashelp@faa.gov. We also have a phone number, 1-844-FLY-MY-UA. And then more recently, we've got a contact web form. So you can find all of that information on that link there, just put in the chat. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Awesome. Thank you.
And are there any other questions?
All right,
Yes,
before Joe leaves, I do want you, Joe, to tell this audience a little bit about the new group.
okay. The group, so why I left the UAS integration office and everybody that I've been so attached to for years, but working all this, Flight Standards, who is the typical the regulator for most of these things, we've had kind of dispersed through many divisions to come to all the waivers and exemptions that many of you are probably familiar with. So to make a long story short, what we've done over the past years, we stood up a new organization over here, a new division that's focused on emerging technologies. And right now we're focused on all things that are drones, Part 107, public aircraft operations, the exemptions, and what's being contemplated in the upcoming rule here. But really, what I want to emphasize with this group here is that Jess summed it up really well. So I'm just repeating what Jess said. Basically, is that we have a whole aviation system that's built on we regulate the compliant, and we're not out there policing every single aspect of aviation because there is a lot of trust built into it. There's a lot of responsibility on operators, and that is a beautiful thing of our system here. And remote ID at the end of the day is a digital license plate. It's the next step in just in normalizing drone activity. So the more that you can do to get that message out that we're seeking compliance, we're tracking it based on our registration database, but we also know that we're never going to reach 100% on those gaps either, because some people probably never have an intention to operate other than at a FRIA. So are they going to upload a unique serial number to the database? Probably not. So we just want to see the trend moving in the right direction. And I think this is just an important thing that can be emphasized and definitely multiplied through your organization. So appreciate the time. And if I bought any time for any questions in there, anybody else?
I had one brief question. Hi, my name's Dominic Lee, University of Missouri, drone journalism. I would like to get the University of Missouri. I've got an application, haven't had much time to fill it out yet, but when I begin that process, I know there's a ton of information there. Should I be filing that on behalf of just my department in journalism, or should I also be wrapping in all the other departments at the university that use drones? Or is it more centric to the fact that I'm teaching how to become Part 107 certified, that it's more just centric to just my program, if that makes sense?
And he's asking about joining the CTI. Dominic, they have requested to participate. And Dominic, if you don't mind, I will get with you later. I'll even give you a call to kind of guide you through that, because we want to make sure that, you've got all that information. And Kathy, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I do have a question. We have been trying to get our testing center at our university approved by PSI as a testing site for the unmanned aircraft and all the other aviation exams. And we have had a lot of difficulty. We started the process 18 months ago and we're still not approved. Is there is there somebody that we could talk to see what help us in this process to go ahead and get this finalized?
Kathy, you're going to love this answer, but reach out to us in the UAS Support Center. We talk to PSI management quite regularly. Be happy to get you in contact with the site supervisor.
Okay, wonderful. I appreciate that very much.
And Sean said they've also tried, so you can also reach out to the support center. Yeah, a few. Sorry. All right. Any more questions for Jessica and Joe regarding time to comply and remote ID?
If not, if you have questions that you remember later, another shout out to the support center. They're there, and they can always reach out to Joe's team and my team. And if they don't know the answer, we'll get it to you as soon as we can through them. Thank you.
I think I saw a hand up from Donald.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Donald.
Thank you. Just one last question, which is, I have a set of drones, maybe 15, and on any given class, we'll be flying 5 of them. Am I correct that I will need broadcast modules for all 15? I can't move them because they're going to be tied to individual drones?
Ben, do you want to take that directly, or you want me to start? Ben didn't drop off here.
Yeah, I'm here, Joe. So number one, I guess it depends. It depends how the drones are registered. If they're registered as recreational aircraft, where you have one registration for many aircraft.
No, they're all under 107.
Okay, so if they're all for under 107 and it's one aircraft per registration, right now we do have a policy where you can make edits to the registration. So you could basically remove the serial number from one registration and add it to another. It's somewhat cumbersome and an administrative burden, but it is possible. I know that's probably not what you'd like to hear, but that is one way to do it. So technically it is possible. If you don't want to have to deal with that administrative burden of like registering and deregistering and changing registration, then you'll have to get a module for each aircraft. Now, if you're only operating 5 at a time and there's some downtime between when you're operating them in your fleet, then maybe that burden is not so difficult. I mean, I've been in the registration system to change some information can take, a few minutes if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it is fairly painful because, for example, I go out on the field and I bring a couple of spares in case something happens to one. And so it adds to the cost burden, which is what I'm facing right now, of the modules to have to equip so many.
And Donald, let me ask, if you're going to the same field normally, have you considered applying for a FRIA or?
I put my free application in the day it opened, but I got you might be flying over people because we fly throughout our campus. We follow Part 107 rules, so we are not going to be flying over people, but my FRIA was denied immediately.
Okay.
And at Palomar, we just bought 4 units. We've got about 30 drones or so. And the plan was we're just going to put Velcro on them and cycle through them. So can I take all 4 modules, the registrations, and add it to every single drone? So each drone is going to use one of those. And we'll never
you have to go
more
in
than
every single time and move them.
Ben, can you comment on that?
Yeah, the rules prohibit you from having a serial number on more than one registration. So while like for a recreational registration, you can share that module between all of the aircraft, you're not allowed to list it on more than one registration.
And Ben, maybe this is why this is good, and we want to listen as regulators here too, because the rule, and if you look at the preamble, and this is for your students too, it was contemplated more for the operator that would be operating solely out there, and relating that unique serial number back to the registered owner of that aircraft. So there might be a segment here in the educational world where letters of authorization or some other solution, like we've done with some drone light shows and things, might be possible. But like I said, that might be through, you want to operate on your whole campus, Part 107. I think we're open for further discussion, but it's good to hear the feedback of the, in your situation of the burden here, because we are trying to streamline some of this upcoming as much as we can.
Yeah, I would love to have some discussion, because when my free application was denied, there was no sign of any interest in discussing. It was, no, you might be flying over people. And that was all I was given.
And I think that was probably early in the process. You said you were one of the first ones, right?
Yeah.
Part of the reason we did push some of the enforcement discretion even was that we had a lot of outstanding FRIA issues before this. So right now, typically if somebody is denied, they do get information about pursuing an authorization. Because once again, it goes back to, maybe it's not a charted FRIA, maybe there are conditions under which you're a known, organizer, it's almost like an aviation event or an aerobatic practice box. have information about you which satisfies remote ID. Go ahead.
One option may be to reapply for the FRIA. Our criteria has evolved slightly since the early days back in 2022. For example, we've seen many FRIA applications from schools and universities, and if they request a FRIA over the campus of their university, where students are walking and people are riding bikes, those FRIAs are generally denied. But if the location is limited to an open area, for example, like a ball field or a football field, or like an open meadow or something like that, those have a higher likelihood of being approved. Now people can be walking through those areas as well, right? We don't require you to put up a fence and cordon off an area, but it's less likely for the uninvolved public to be in those areas. Whereas if you say, over a college campus, we block off an area, it's very challenging to be able to do that, like in the middle of a busy campus.
But what about the fact that we're flying under Part 107 rules anyway, so we're not flying over people? Because my students are going to be on, we have multiple fields and we do projects throughout the campus.
Yeah, and this may be a situation where our policy evolved, right? It's not about directly flying over people. It's about flying in the proximity of uninvolved people. So, you don't have to be directly above someone's head. Most likely people are not looking straight up, right? They're looking at a slant angle. So it's about, what could be taking place in the general proximity of where that FRIA is located. And if it's
you're setting your rules more strictly than Part 107 is, because Part 107 says no operations over people unless you're flying under those rules. So you're setting your FRIA rules tighter than the Part 107 ones.
Yeah, this great point. This comes up a lot, and we remind people, the FRIA is not an operational approval. We're not denying you the ability to operate or even operate over people. We're just requiring you to do it with remote ID. So the FRIA is relief from the remote ID requirements. It has nothing to do with whether you're approved to operate or not. So in some cases, FRIAs are denied, and then people go out and conduct the exact same operations where they want to. They just have to do it with remote ID.
But is there any leeway with educational institutions?
Yes, and let me help with this too, because part of this rule was security oriented. So if there's let's just use an example. If there's a FRIA over a whole campus, if law enforcement were to pull up, they would know that that's a charted area where anybody in that area could be operating without a broadcast module or standard remote ID. So once again, it would come back to the responsible person for that FRIA, and you might not have control of everybody or know of people that are flying drones in that area. So it really just comes down to awareness of who's in that space. So once again, you're right. We're not trying to make this more restrictive than Part 107 was, but it gets a little bit more complicated the larger the FRIAs go. And educational organizations aren't the only ones. We have national community-based organizations too that have pushed for FRIAs essentially in everybody's backyards, and we've had to go back and say the intention of the identification was not to have FRIAs across the country where the intention was that you comply with the rule standard broadcast or through a FRIA. So we've been in kind of a mix. We're not saying you can't operate. We're saying we need to evolve and figure out what parameters around the FRIAs and how this is going to work. And like I said, we're trying to evolve from the feedback here. So if you want to reapply, if you want to put it back in, we're more than willing to do that. So
I just wanted to add that these solutions are not really solutions for our kind of situation. We do a lot of stuff in the field. We work with San Diego State, with different entities around San Diego and our county. So we're flying at various locations. So if I can't use just those 4 modules and go in between different aircraft, then you guys are creating a really burden of expense on us having to get new drones that would have that capability and kind of making our older fleet alienated. that's not helping education in our current state. I'd be happy to get all the new drones, but I have to ask for those budgets, and that's usually a year out anyway.
No, Mark, if you're all over the state, the requirement is that you put that unique serial number with that registration. So if you have 5 students that are going to go out for a day, my suggestion would be each student has the task, or you have the task because you've got the passcode. You just have to switch those 5 to the drones that you're using. I mean, there's no cost to go back in right now to do that change. So it's really just a like I said, it was designed so 107 was 1-to-1.
We have 2 more questions. I know Michael's had his hand up a while. Michael, Andrew, both just really quick question. We'll try to get a quick answer so we can, we're great on time. We don't have to rush, but I do want to keep us moving. So Michael.
Oh, yeah, and this is really just kind of an overall regulatory question in terms of remote ID and where it's going in the future. Because obviously, like with ADSB and things of that nature, all that aircraft data gets transmitted down the ground stations and it's stored and it's publicly accessible. A lot of the consultative efforts that we do at our college involve law enforcement partners, and they're asking us questions of like, how do you get the remote ID data? And really, as far as I know, we don't have a ground infrastructure that's receiving and storing it. So do I tell them like, hey, we're kind of out of luck, you got to be close enough to it to pick up the broadcast signal from these modules? Or is there some kind of ground infrastructure coming eventually?
So that's a great question. And I'll go back to the basics and then please, Ben, jump in here. But the rule after the NPRM changed from having a network remote ID proposed, which would be a whole network of nationwide things, to a broadcast requirement. So the rule requires broadcast. The rule does not require reception. The rule does not require that it's stored. The rule does not require any of that. So it even uses the term in the preamble, it's a digital license plate. So it was meant to be open source, and it was meant to be available too, that any individual with a cell phone, with another device, with a tablet, technology determining some of this stuff, but essentially, if I see a drone flying over and it's remote ID compliant, I should get information via the serial number. Law enforcement will have the ability to have more information from the registration database through our application protocol interfaces. But at the end of the day, it's really going to be if a university, if a security sensitive location wants to put up sensors and wants to link that with either their detection system or wants to record that type of data, or if you as an individual see a drone flying over and you say, hey, I don't think that should be here, and you've got the serial number, you take a screenshot, then when you contact local law enforcement, they can link it back to the operator. So that was, like I said, in the evolution of things, this is kind of a leap forward into aircraft have N numbers that are supposed to be 12 inches, you know, unless they're much older, so they can be seen 750 feet away. What do you do for drones? What do you do to normalize them? They have to have a digital means of a license plate. But Ben, did you have more that you want to add?
No, I mean, that's a great explanation, Joe. I think the answer, and it's in what Joe said, is when we switch from network to broadcast in the final rule, we made the conscious decision to make the remote ID information available locally. And what does that mean? That means within receiving range of the broadcasts. And these are generally low power broadcasts. We see some test data. When people say, hey, you know, I can only receive the broadcast a mile away or a mile and a half away, or maybe even less in some environments, that's what we intended. And that was in response to overwhelming public comment that people were, you know, didn't like the idea of their information being available on a nationwide network and available, you know, if I'm flying in California, why does someone in New York need to know that I'm operating a drone? So it does provide some additional privacy to the operators. No publicly available information is contained in the broadcast. It's all about location and a unique identifier that, like Joe said, can only be traced back to the owner's identity by authorized officials like law enforcement.
Joe, you said it links back to the operator, but in our cases, the operator is the college. It doesn't link it back to just,
well,
yeah, it's always in our case, every
Yeah.
single drone is gonna be registered to the college. So then why not just let us use those remote ID modules on any drone that we have? Because it links it back to the college.
And we're gonna take that back and we'll talk with our IT developers, and we'll also bounce that across the rule here, because like I said, we have to go back with what was finalized, and part of it here too is we as the regulators have to comply with the rule as it's, and we have to, or we need a rule change. So some of those things, the one-to-one aspect of broadcast modules to 107 is something that we're bound by right now. And we, short of a rule change, we have to find a way to make it best work. So, and I'm not an attorney. So
Appreciate you taking the feedback.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looks like Andrew has his hand up now.
So a specific question. Our university, we have a rule that requires anyone who's flying on campus to get permission from the administration of the college or the university. We have 2 adjacent football fields on campus that the drone program uses to fly. And if we were to apply for a FRIA, is the FRIA open to the public, or is it something that we can still mandate you have to get approval from the university in order to fly on the property? How does that work?
So Ben, I'll just kick that one directly to you because I think you're much more involved with this.
Sure. So once the FRIAs are approved, they're not limited to any type of user. So the FRIA approval itself doesn't limit it. However, if there are laws or restrictions on who can access the property underneath the FRIA, that essentially serves to limit the FRIA. Another great example is a FRIA located on private property. And there are many of them, and they're on the UDS map that Jessica showed us earlier. Just because there's a FRIA there doesn't give a drone user the right to go and access the private property and operate the FRIA. All it is an area that's set aside for people that can operate without remote ID. So your rules and regulations about access to your university still stand. No drone user can say, I have a right to be there because there's a FRIA there.
Perfect. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right, let's just keep on moving along and we'll be finished with the meeting right on time. Let me go back and share the screen. Venus, I think you are up next.
Yeah, I just want to talk, I guess, since we're talking about safety, just about our Drone Safety Day. This year on April 27th, we hope that you'll explore drone safety events in your community and in industry during our 5th consecutive Drone Safety Day. This is an annual campaign and is dedicated to increasing awareness on the importance of practicing safe drone operations. And because you all are leaders in a larger conversation about drones, we hope that you'll participate this year and have an event, host an event, or create some content, or maybe even participate virtually with someone else's event. I encourage you to use our hashtags on your social media, take pictures, post pictures, and don't forget to tag us about this. Before we this year's theme is the same as last year, and it's Fly Right. And the acronym stands for Register Your Drone, Interact with Others, Gain Knowledge, Have a Safety Plan, Trust, and Train. I'll drop some information in the chat about where to register, how to register, suggestions on different events, and where you can get some more information about different kinds of events that you might want to have yourself. Over to you, Diana.
Yeah, and I believe we're working on the website, right? Bringing it up to date. So it may.
No, I think it is already up and ready to go on the FAA side.
Okay.
Yes, we did update as much as we could at this point. And if you find anything in there, Venus, that is not correct, just shoot me an email and I will get it updated as soon as I can.
Thank you, Megan.
You bet.
Thanks, Venus.
Thank you.
All right. And now we're going to tell you just a little. Those of you that have been in past meetings, we have two subgroups. Many of you participate on them. The UAS CTI curriculum work group, and then the other is the UAS CTI occupational work group. And I know that Wing is here. Zach, are you here with us? And if not, I'll talk a little bit about the curriculum work group. All right. So the curriculum work group was engaged to look carefully at the legislative requirements that were set forth for our CTI schools for joining the program. There was a list, if you remember, of training objectives and goals, and to determine what subtopics are necessary to meet those requirements. So the group met many times over the course of this past year to kind of flesh the topics out. Currently, all subjects have been compiled and laid out in a logical manner. Next steps will be to identify interested stakeholders and provide stipends, maybe through NSF funding, to provide curriculum on each of the subtopics. And the intended goal is to provide a cohesive curriculum package that is universal design for learning, UDL compliant, and house the curriculum on the NCAT resource page. And so this resource would then be freely available to many interested parties, but targeted at academic institutions. I do want to also thank Zach Nicklin, who's led this group. And this past summer, Joe from Clemson actually led us through while Zach had other things going on. And so thank you so much for your leadership. Now, the CTI occupational work group, Wing, if you will come on and join us and just talk about that a little.
Sure. Thank you, Diana. My name is Wayne Cheung. I'm a professor of geography, GIS, and drone technology at Palomar College in San Diego. And I've been chairing the UAS CTI Occupational Work Group, or COW. The aim of this work group is to ensure that drone occupations are accurately represented in the federal Standard Occupational Classification System, or SOC. If I may share my screen, is that okay, Diana?
Yes, let me stop share. There you go. Oh, let me see. I think I can. Oh, very good.
Yeah. So as you can see on my screen, in case you're not familiar with the SOC, every occupation, well, not every occupation, there's a federal system that exists to try to attempt to classify all of the occupations that are in the country. And you can see here's just one example of those occupations: electromechatronic, mechanical and mechatronic technologists and technicians. And so what we're aiming to do is to have a profile like this for drone-related occupations. And this is important because if you work in a school and you have applied for funding, like Perkins funding or strong workforce funding, oftentimes it requires an occupation that your program is related to be in the SOC system. And so back in 2021, the COW work group has worked with the Department of Labor to update 5 of the existing occupations that is in the SOC system to integrate mentions of drone technologies. And the reason why we have to do that is because the SOC system is only updated with congressional oversight every 10 years. And so the next update is due for 2028. And so starting in 2023, a group of us, including academics and industry professionals, have been meeting bi-weekly to discuss a set of information that are typically required or requested by the SOC Policy Committee for consideration of any new occupations in the SOC system. And in this case, the COW work group has come up with a job title of, occupation title of drone operators. And you can see here on this Google Sheet, we have basically talked about all the different sections that have been requested by the SOC Policy Committee in anticipation for the Federal Register that is probably going to open in several months, and it'll take them anywhere from basically between 2024 until 2028 to decide whether to accept these public comments and create a new occupation for drone operator. And I'm going to share this link in the chat, so any of you can feel free to basically look over what we have discussed and decide on as a work group so far and comments. Okay, back to you, Diana. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, and we hope, I know last exponential we met, the committee met, and we invited others, and we hope that we'll be doing that again this year, even a potential work session. So we'll let you know if that occurs, but that's our hope. All right. And speaking of exponential, I just thought I'd throw out a couple things for you to be looking out for. AUVSI's exponential is April 22nd through the 25th in San Diego.
She might have frozen. Can't see it, but I did drop a couple of the links in the chat for a few upcoming events that are going on. She already mentioned Exponential, and we have Drone Safety Day. We're trying to figure out what kind of event the FAA is going to have for Drone Safety Day. And UAS Symposium is in Baltimore. It's July 29th through August 1st. The symposium and the AAM summit will be back in Baltimore at the Convention Center again this summer. Experience STEAM Minneapolis in August. I don't have a lot of details about that. Hopefully she'll pop back on and
What can I answer for you, Venus? Because that is an NCAT event.
Oh, just if you can just give a little information about dates maybe and what it's about.
Okay, Experience STEAM at Mall of America is August 2nd through the 4th. Basically any autonomous STEM, aviation, manufacturing, anything that is in that realm. We have hands-on free activities that anybody can come and do. We have every aspect of Mall of America on the main floor basically filled. We have a drone cage, we have walk-up hands-on experiential learning for like VR and robots, and there's a VEX competition and all those kinds of things. This will be our second year doing that. Our first year was in 2022. And if you want to learn more about the event, you can go right to the NCAT website, and under the events tab, click Experience STEAM.
And those links are in the chat, so you can get to it easily. I think Diana's back now.
Oh my goodness, I crashed. I almost made it. All right, so the last thing I want us to do is I want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Give us some suggestions. You don't have to do it today, but what are other questions you may have? I see Shadi's got his hand up, but are there certain topics, speakers? This was, again, a kickoff for 2024. We wanted you to meet the right people. We wanted you to hear about it is time to comply. But throughout our past meetings, we try to have, special, whether they're from industry, from government, public safety, and, just something that you're curious about. And Shadi, would you like to come on? You can turn your microphone on.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been great. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm trying to get my camera on, but it's not cooperating. Oh, there you go. So you can see me now.
I think the camera's on is why I crashed, but that's okay. We want to see your face. We want to see your faces. So you're welcome to come on, everybody. In fact, I'm going to stop the share.
Okay. So my question was, given there's a great wealth of information, and you guys do an awesome job, everybody. And it appears like there's a lot of great ideas going on and events. One area I'm particularly interested in is because we're kind of new. I'm trying to establish some type of community, some type of interest from stakeholders. It might be helpful to put together some type of maybe ideas for events, or if you want to get started, you want to engage the community. I saw that you had some examples of some great events that are taking place, but perhaps some type of guideline or some type of maybe, and you may already have that prepared already, possibly. I see your smile, so I'm assuming.
So the NCAT website actually has where you can post your event.
Okay.
Megan, I don't know if you have a direct link to that, but it's within I think it's even on the CTI repository. Because really, when we started that repository, that was a big piece of it, is sharing that information so that you can tell everybody what's going on. But don't hesitate to send us a message to the CTI email, and yeah, we can. I think that's actually a really great idea. We could just push out maybe like monthly, or if we hear from you, we could share with everybody.
But also something where I can reproduce easily. Like, this was a successful event that was geared towards the high school. Here's what we did. Here's the equipment list. Here's something to that effect. That would be very helpful in spreading the impact.
I know what
just to let you know, Diana, too. I'm sorry. If you are looking for free resources or any of that kind of stuff, there is an educator resource file on the NCAT website. That you can find resource materials, study guides, lesson plans, all that kind of stuff. I did put a note in the chat as well if you guys want to look at the pages on the website, as we are looking to update them and freshen them up.
Thank you. I was kind of heading down that road, so you jumped ahead of me, and I appreciate that so much, because this is all about sharing best practices. That's why we started, and to build this program out. So we very much want that to happen. And I know I was going to say that early on, someone asked about like simulator, what's your favorite simulator? And that was just through email, and people responded. And then the person asking actually put together a little spreadsheet of here were the comments that came back. So I love that. Other questions? Anybody want to jump on? Michael, I see your hand up. Please turn your camera on, and Mike.
Hey all, and Diana, again, thanks for joining in our industry advisory board. I don't think I ever had a chance to properly thank you, because that was a very productive meeting. But one of the things that I kind of look at is somebody that started their aviation career on the traditional manned aircraft side is when it comes to professional development, obviously we have the wings program for traditional pilots and for aircraft maintenance technicians. And the Drone Safety Day, I think, is a great first step in the right direction for us kind of getting alongside our peers as other certificated airmen. But do we see on the FAA side where there's going to eventually be a remote pilot track that folks can go through that wings pathway for?
We've had this question brought up before about like a wings for drones, right? A wings program. And I wish I could tell you the reasons why it wasn't happening, and I'm not sure that it will. Is that what you're asking? And if I'm not correct in that, then somebody else is welcome to jump in. I know we still have support staff here. I think, with the wings, you have practicals, and we just have part 107, but we don't have practicals that are part of that. And I think that was a big reason. Joe,
Okay.
Steve, I think Steve Farrow, I don't know if he's still on. Others, comments?
I'm happy to jump in because we've been involved with it for a while. No, the theory is a sound one, and when we came down to it with part 107, though, because the barrier for entry, we tried to make it as attainable as possible. So there's, it went from spending $10,000 to $19,000 to get your private pilot certificate in current dollars down to, there's no requirement for training, endorsement. It's verification through a knowledge test. So really wings, a lot of it is about currency and getting that credit towards your requirements, and the requirements just aren't built into that. So we're interested in other ways to encourage people to take, continual training or up that. So, but with 107, it really hasn't lent itself to, what do you get for taking these wings credits? I know that AUVSI and others have done, the top programs and things like that. But the reason really that we didn't stress that is because there's not that whole structure in place of requirements for continued currency and that type of thing. So I don't know if that helps answer the question. But,
Yeah, and really, I guess where I was angling the question is like, will there eventually be a official FAA kind of substitute to like the AVSI top operator and USI's like safety level 1 through 3 programs, just because they're quite a bit more expensive than what you typically get on the wing side of things for Part 61 pilots.
Well, I can tell you the best place, and especially as an organization like this, now that you're grouped together too, and you can do it individually or you can do it as a group. You know, we do have upcoming rules or notice proposed rulemaking that will hopefully be coming out. And if you don't see things like that in there, that is the place to really, you know, like Ben mentioned the comments on remote ID, we do take all those comments seriously, and we sometimes pivot the directions that we're going. And to give you an example, that, you know, it used to be for a significant rule, we'd get, you know, dozens or hundreds of comments. With Part 107, we had about 4,700 comments, which we thought was a lot. Remote ID, we kind of broke the system. We had 52,000 comments. So it takes a whole staff of people to literally read all those. Some of those are group comments, but actually the remote ID one had less of a percentage of the group, you know, form letter comments than you typically see. So we do read them all, and especially from organizations, associations, universities, you know, we call those out. That's why preambles are like 100 pages long usually. So no, we're open to that, and I definitely want your feedback. And I do just want to credit back everybody who's asking remote ID questions. Ben and I have been messaging behind the scenes here. We truly not trying to explain away your problems here. We're grateful for the feedback that you're giving us here, because it's giving us some thoughts on what we could potentially do internally, or what you could potentially do from your rulemaking experience on the outside. So hope that answered your question best we could.
And you can always send questions to the UAS help@faa.gov. And I dropped our email address for the CTI program. Again, send your suggestion topics or topic suggestions, any other comments if you have more questions, and we will get back with you. So I've got 5 minutes till the meeting, to end of the meeting. I can't talk, so I probably need to get off. I'm getting tongue-tied. We are just delighted that you all have been here today. I notice if you've dropped off over the last 30 minutes or so. It has been a long meeting, but it was our kickoff for 2024. We look forward to the next meeting. Hope that you can attend some of these events. And you know, some of us may be there, some of us may not, so we can meet you in person or see you in person again. And I just hope that you have a really great rest of the evening. Thank you, speakers, Joe and Jessica, for being here, Venus, for helping me out here. Wing, glad to have you share a little bit about the job classification project that we've been working on for a while. And that was actually, I can send that back to Joe, because Joe was in that very first meeting, and we heard you. You know, we were always concerned about the lack of job data, and from that this grew. So what you say is important. It's just like Joe said, and we will take that back to when we plan out not only our meetings but projects. And we do have it is being recorded. Mike, you just asked that, and I will push that out once it's published and on the NCAP website. You can go to any past meetings, they're there. And I'm seeing a few things in the chat, and I'm saving the